Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we are launching a new scary adventure that will unfold as an exciting series with several episodes. Get ready to plunge into the darkness, where each new video brings even more horror and excitement. Subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss a single episode and keep up to date with the most terrifying events. It will only get scarier and more intense with each release. Click on the bell to be the first to learn about new episodes of our terrifying series. 16-year-old Liam Rayner missed his routine life in California. There was no room for new emotions in his daily routine, and the desire for change was so strong that he decided to leave his hometown and move to a prestigious boarding school called Farrell Hill. The school was renowned for its strict order and advanced learning, but Liam was particularly intrigued by the idea of the great possible, an inspiring concept that was often discussed in school circles. At Farrell Hill, Liam quickly adapted and formed a friendship with Sam, his roommate. Sam, known for his leadership nature and ability to organize everything around him, was nicknamed Captain. He showed Liam how life works in this place and introduced him to the rest of the students, including the mysterious and attractive Emily Ward. Emily, with her sharp mind and unpredictable moods, immediately caught Liam's attention. Emily was a multi-layered personality. Her eternal mood swings and mysterious behavior quickly became noticeable. Liam, believing that this may be a temporary phenomenon, tries to understand her better. She was charming and flirtatious, but underneath that facade there were deep internal conflict. Liam was fascinated by her mysterious nature, but over time noticed that her behavior was becoming more unstable. Emily was fascinated by the idea of running away from herself, a concept that was at the center of her philosophical reflection. She often mentioned that life was an endless maze of suffering, and this state of despair consumed her more and more. This philosophy, taken from ancient texts about the endless paths along which souls wander, became the basis of her perception of the world. She said that real life is an eternal struggle to get out of this maze, where suffering is inevitable. Liam, watching Emily, noticed that her philosophy of running away from herself was not just a concept, but a deep inner state in which she was stuck. Every day she became more and more closed, immersed in her own thoughts and gloomy reflection. Liam was attracted not only by her intelligence, but also by the way she was able to create an aura of mystery and uncertainty around herself. Over time, Liam began to have feelings for Emily that were difficult to explain. Every time they met, he felt his heart racing and his thoughts starting to get confused. Emily, with her complex personality and emotional instability, was both attractive and frightening. Liam felt that her dark sides, her inner demons, were reflected on him, making him think about his own fears and desires. One day, after school, Liam and Emily were accidentally left alone in the old school building, which was abandoned and used only for storing old books and furniture. There was silence in this room, interrupted only by the sounds of footsteps and rustling. Liam noticed that Emily seemed to be in a special mood. She was not the same as usual, more relaxed and open. They sat on the floor, surrounded by old books and dust, and talked about life and their fears. Emily told Liam about her fears and doubts, how her past still torments her, and how she can't get rid of the feeling that her life is an endless maze from which there is no way out. Her words were full of pain, and Liam felt his heart break listening to her. He understood that Emily was struggling with inner demons, and he wanted to be the one to help her find light in the dark. When Emily stopped talking, Liam, without thinking about the consequences, approached her and gently touched her hand. His touch was careful, full of genuine warmth and support. Emily looked at him in surprise, and then her eyes filled with tears. In that moment, Liam felt that an invisible bond had formed between them, which united them in their shared suffering and hopes. They continued to sit together, and Liam began to talk about his own fears and hopes. There was determination and support in his voice, and Emily began to see him as more than just a friend. She began to believe that maybe someone really understood her, and this feeling changed her perception of the world. The long-awaited moment has come, the ball in honor of the end of the academic semester. At Farrell Hill, it was an event that everyone had been preparing for a long time, and carefully. For most of the students, it was an opportunity to show themselves, show off their best outfits, and become part of the party that everyone was waiting for. Emily, as always, was the center of attention. Her laid-back charm and mysterious aura attracted the attention of many boys from the school. That evening, she was wearing an elegant dress in deep emerald color, which perfectly emphasized her figure and contrasted with her pale skin. Liam, seeing her in this outfit, was struck by her beauty, but also felt that her emotional instability in this light was becoming even more obvious. The evening began as a regular event. Music, laughter, dancing. Guys from different parts of the school diligently tried to win Emily's attention by giving her flowers and inviting her to dance. She seemed to enjoy the attention, but there was still a shadow of that darkness in her eyes that Liam knew well. Liam saw how Emily easily and gracefully rejected the advances of her classmate. He could feel his own heart constricting with jealousy and worry. Some point, he saw one of the guys, Royce from high school, begin to show a particularly persistent interest in Emily. Royce was known for his recklessness and his penchant for adventure. He approached Emily as she stood by the window and began a conversation with her that looked increasingly tense. Liam, sensing that the situation could get out of control, decided to intervene. He came up to them, and Emily, noticing him, looked relieved. Royce was clearly annoyed that Liam had intervened, and a short but tense exchange ensued. Liam was ready to enter into a conflict, but Emily gently pulled him aside, and together they went to a secluded place. There, in a secluded corner, Emily began to talk about how her dark past continues to haunt her, and how she feels lost amid all the attention and expectations. Liam was touched by her sincerity and concern. At that moment, when the music from the hall reached their ears, he invited her to go out into the fresh air. They went out onto the terrace, where Liam noticed that the flowers decorating the territory had become a source of strange light, as if the very sources of lighting in this place had become unusually bright and changed. In this unexpectedly bright light, when Emily and Liam were standing at the fence, Emily suddenly began to talk about how she felt like she was trapped in a maze from which there was no way out. Her voice was full of despair, and Liam felt that this evening was not just a ball, but a real test. Royce suddenly appeared from around the corner of the terrace, looking displeased. He approached them and, clearly not seeing how close they had become, invited Emily to dance. Liam felt a growing anxiety inside him. Emily, feeling exhausted, did not resist and agreed. The dance was strange. Royce was quite rude, and his behavior only made the gloomy atmosphere worse. Liam watched from the sidelines, his feelings becoming more and more intense. Emily seemed to be in some kind of trance, and the dance became more and more chaotic, which attracted the attention of the other students. The music had changed, and now it sounded like a dark, disturbing composition that only intensified the atmosphere of fear. When the dance ended, Royce seemed satisfied, but his behavior left Liam feeling anxious. Liam wasted no time approaching Emily again to find out how she was feeling. She was agitated and her face was pale. Liam decided to take her to a quiet place to calm her down. However, their conversation was interrupted by an unexpected incident. Noticing that Emily was continuing to behave unnaturally, Liam saw her look at the phone she was holding in panic. Her face turned even paler, and she began to quickly leave the place. Liam followed her, but suddenly they both found themselves in one of the old, run-down rooms of the school. Liam and Emily ended up in an abandoned wing of the school. It was dark here, the air was dusty, and the floor was covered with a layer of ancient dust, making creaking sounds with every step. The dark corridors and shadows cast by old, dusty windows created an atmosphere of oblivion and desolation. Emily was in a state close to panic. Her breathing became rapid, and she quickly looked around as if looking for an exit that seemed to disappear from sight. Liam tried to calm her down, but his words did not reach her. He realized that he needed to do something more effective. Soon, they came across one of the ancient classrooms, where it seemed that books and materials had once been stored. Dusty shelves were littered with yellow and battered volumes, and some books opened on stained pages. Liam saw that Emily had almost forgotten about his presence, her eyes darting around the room as if she was trying to figure out where she was and what was going on. "Emily, listen to me," Liam said, trying to take her hand. "We have to stay calm. I know it's hard right now, but we can find a way out of here. Everything will be fine." Emily looked at him, her eyes full of tears and fear. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I can't get out of this maze. I can't run away from my own fears." Liam felt his own heart constrict with compassion. He understood that Emily was on the verge of losing control, and that her fears weren't just abstract, they were real and scary. He tried to turn her attention to something more constructive. "Listen," he said, "let's try something else. Let's try to talk about it. Maybe if you tell me about your fears, I can help you find a way out. We're in this together." Emily, as if she hadn't heard him, looked back at the phone she was holding in her hand. I have to do this," she said. Liam saw that a calendar with a reminder of the anniversary of her mother's death was on the phone screen. This explained her panic state. "We can discuss this later," Liam continued. "It's important now that we don't get lost here." He tried to distract her attention by suggesting that they find some secluded place in this neglected part of the school where they could calm down. He noticed that there was an old table and several chairs covered with dust in the corner of the room. This place could become a temporary shelter. As they sat down, Liam noticed that Emily was starting to calm down a bit. He began to tell her about what had happened at the ball, about how she had attracted everyone's attention, but Royce himself looked particularly worried. Perhaps her fears and anxieties were more personal and internal than she could have imagined. At some point, when the conversation became more open, Emily began to cry. Her tears were a painful admission of her inner fear and suffering. Liam continued to sit next to him, trying to be a support. He talked about his own fears and experiences, how he himself faces problems, and how he learns to overcome them. As time passed, Liam began to notice that the light in the room was gradually changing. He understood that the night had already come, and they had to return. However, when they tried to leave the room, Liam noticed that the door through which they entered did not open for some reason. It was tightly closed, as if something had blocked it. "Look, we have to try to find another way out," Liam said, trying not to panic. "Can't stay here for long." They began to look for another way out, exploring the dark corridors and rooms. Liam noticed that every time they turned a corner, corridors seemed more familiar and confusing. The shadows on the walls and the echo of their footsteps created the illusion that the room was changing and expanding. Meanwhile, Emily looked increasingly exhausted. She said that she felt trapped in a maze from which there was no way out. Liam could feel her fear, and his own anxiety was growing. They continued to search for an exit, and Liam noticed that one of the rooms at the end of the corridor looked a little more well-maintained. They came to this room and found that it was an old library full of ancient books and archives. There was a large wooden door in the corner, with a lock that looked very old. Liam went to the door and began to examine it. He noticed that something was stuck in the lock. With difficulty, he was able to open the door, and they were free, but in a completely different wing of the school. "We seem to have found a way out," Liam said, looking at Emily. "But we need to be careful. It can still be dangerous here." When Liam and Emily came out of the abandoned porch and found themselves in a new, more well-maintained space, they discovered that it was a wing of the school that had not previously attracted their attention. The corridors were clean, with new carpets and bright lighting. Liam and Emily came across a small, comfortably furnished room with sofas and a coffee table. "Maybe we can rest here for a while and figure out what to do next," Liam suggested, noticing that Emily looked exhausted. They entered the room, and Liam noticed that there was a bottle of red wine and 2 glasses on the table. Someone must have used this place for informal meetings. Emily seemed to notice the bottle immediately and looked at it with some interest. "You want a drink?" Liam asked, trying to change the subject to distract Emily from her worries. Emily nodded and took one of the bottles. "Maybe this will help me relax a little." Liam poured wine into glasses, and they sat down on the sofa. The atmosphere in the room was much more relaxed than in the abandoned corridors, which calmed Emily down a little. They started talking about their lives before Farrell Hill. Emily spoke about her difficult relationship with her family and how her mother's death left her alone and insecure. Liam, in turn, shared his feelings about how difficult it was for him to leave home and cope with new challenges. "I never thought it would be so difficult," Emily said, looking into her wine glass. "It all seems so pointless sometimes." Liam, sensing her emotional tension, gently touched her hand. "You're not alone. We all go through difficulties, but together we can do it." Emily looked at him, and her eyes were full of gratitude. She leaned back on the sofa and sighed. "Thanks. I didn't know that I had someone who really understood." With each sip of wine, the tension between them began to subside, and the conversation became more open. Liam felt his own feelings for Emily grow deeper and deeper. He saw her fears and experiences transformed into something more vulnerable and human. Their eyes met, and a spark began to slip between them. However, as they continued to drink, Liam noticed that Emily began to look more relaxed, but also more careless. At one point, she got up to look out the window and noticed that it was dark outside, and the moon was shining on the empty school. "Liam, did you hear that?" "What is it?" she suddenly asked, listening to some sounds outside the window. "There's someone there." Liam listened and heard nothing but a soft rustle. Tried to calm her down, but at that moment a strange light was reflected on the wall, as if someone had turned on an old projector. A projection of dancing couples appeared on the wall, as if from the past. The room became even more strange and uncomfortable. "It's just an old projector," Liam said, trying to explain. "Let's not pay attention to it." They returned to the conversation, but soon Emily looked worried again. "It seems to me that something is wrong. I can't understand why it's so hard for me to be calm." Liam looked at her sympathetically. "You can't control all your fears. Sometimes you just have to let go and trust what you have." At that moment, they heard a noise outside the door. Liam and Emily froze as the door began to slowly open. They looked at each other with tension. Liam got up and walked to the door, while Emily remained sitting, watching him warily. When the door opened, Royce appeared in the room. His face was distorted with anger, and his eyes shone with an ominous light. He looked like he had failed at something important, and he was willing to do anything to get what he wanted. "You're here," Royce exclaimed. "I've been looking for you. Why are you running away? Did you think you could just escape?" Liam stood in front of Emily, trying to protect her. "Royce, let us go. We don't want to quarrel." Royce, however, was unpredictable and aggressive. His behavior was becoming increasingly erratic, and Liam understood that they needed to proceed cautiously. He tried to calm Royce down by offering to talk and explain what had happened. "Emily, we have to find a way to get out of here," Liam said, trying to be cool. "Don't lose your temper." Emily, still under the influence of the wine, got up and walked over to Royce. "You don't understand. It's not about you. It's about me." At that moment, Royce, as if sensing something, slowly calmed down. His expression changed, and he began to realize that his aggression was directed at the wrong thing. "Okay," Royce said, suddenly becoming calm. "If you want to leave, just go. I don't want this to continue." When Royce left the room, Liam and Emily breathed a sigh of relief and decided that they needed to go back to a safer place and rest. It had been a long night, and although they had found temporary shelter, they still had a lot of work to do to sort out their feelings and fears. As Liam and Emily continued to discuss their plans for the future, they became more and more open about their feelings for each other. Trying to sort out their experiences, they began to realize that they find comfort and support in each other, despite all the difficulties that surrounded them. When Royce left them alone, Liam and Emily felt relieved. Realizing that their night escape from the old porch had come to an end, they decided that they needed to return to a more familiar place to rest in peace. Liam and Emily returned to the lighted corridors of the school and headed to one of the spare rooms that they could use for an overnight stay. Emily, fortunately, was already calmer, and despite the fact that the night was far from perfect, they found an opportunity to relax and unwind. As soon as they settled into the room, Liam noticed that Emily began to look much more peaceful. They lay down on mattresses that they found in one of the vaults, and conversations between them became easy and relaxed. They discussed their plans for the future, talked about how their night turned out, and shared their hopes and dreams.